Thanks everyone for joining us. This is our first episode that we are kicking off of the Director's Cut. What is the Director's Cut, you say? Well, in basic layman's terms, it's the founder and executive director of the Santa Clarita International Film Festival interviewing directors who have won awards at the Santa Clarita International Film Festival. And the first one who is joining us today is Michael Greene. So Michael Greene, thank you for being our guinea pig. I mean guest, I mean guinea pig, I mean guest. So thanks for putting your neck out there for us.
Good to be here.
In full disclosure for everyone, Michael Greene is also a friend, which is why I think I dragged him in Kicking and Screaming first. And he's also been dragged in Kicking and Screaming to the Skiff team by Sean McBride, who's our associate film director, and has made Michael Greene, whether he likes it or not, I think our production lead, as well as our production education program lead. So congratulations, in case you didn't know that, Michael, you are now.
I didn't know about Sean with that big title. Wow, all right.
Yeah, well, I figured other than me, he kind of is out there and he's building relationships. And I mean, kid lives down in Hermosa Beach, and he's up here in Santa Clarita shaking more hands than I do. So, he's
a hustler.
He's hammering away. He's hustling, but it's not about Sean. It's about you. It's about you. It's about you. It's about you. So, obviously I said award winner at Santa Clarita International Film Festival. So Michael Greene, why don't you tell us, you were Skiff 2022, what your project was and what award you won. And then we'll talk a little bit about the project and how it came to be.
So we entered off of, so our short film, it was a documentary short called Vaccinate Watts, and we entered that in the 2022 Skiff International Film Festival, got accepted. That was after we were at the APHA, which is a pretty prestigious medical film festival, earlier, like around September, which is basically just all doctors and medical people watch this, and it was pretty, I guess it was good for that audience, based on the subject matter. But yeah, so we entered it, and then we won best documentary short in the festival. So that was really exciting. And I gave the lamest acceptance speech on record. So keep that in your archives.
Well, you're making up for it. Yeah, it's like, but we're making up for it right now with the interview. We're making up for it. So tell me how Vaccinate Watts came to be. Again, I have a little bit of the inside information, just from what I heard, again, from you and Sean. But at the end of the day, like, how did this project come? How did it come to be Vaccinate Watts?
Well, Sean and I had been working with Vaccinate LA. So we were basically producing content for their campaign to bring awareness to what the vaccinations were for COVID, and also to dispel information like the information that was inaccurate about what these vaccines were. And so we were doing so much. Even the ad agency that they had hired for this was using our content in their campaign. So we were basically boots on the ground, all over South LA, just talking to people who, were or were not going to get vaccinated. But also we ended up just starting to document so much of what was happening. And so,
and what do you mean by happening? Go into that. I've seen it, but I want to. Yeah.
What had happened, where we realized there was a problem, was basically a friend of mine who I'd known for 20 years. I knew he was a deacon at this pretty historic church in Watts, Pastor Alvin Stafford, who then had become a pastor of this historic church. His uncle, who had been the pastor for 40 years, stepped down right in the middle of COVID. And I had asked him, because we were reaching out to community leaders and influencers, and I wanted to find out if he'd be interested in helping us, spread the message or use his platform to get messaging out. And like that first conversation was really enlightening, because he felt like, it was his obligation, as a leader of this church to really get informed and then
Mm.
be able to help his parishioners or congregation get, you know, the right information to them. And so we connected the dots between the SCCTSI, which is like the community outreach arm of USC, which is who was
Mm-hmm.
hiring us to shoot this content. And I
Mm-hmm.
just remember on that first Zoom call with them, and he basically asked the question, so where in Watts can somebody get vaccinated? And the person was looking, oh, I've got all this information here. She's looking down, nowhere. And he's like, so nowhere in
Nowhere in
Watts,
Watts.
no
Nowhere.
one can get
So.
vaccinated in Watts. And so she said, but we'll give people, free travel vouchers or free car vouchers from Lyft to go somewhere. And he said, no, that's not good enough. And he's like, I have a church that I'm doing virtual church from, but I have a massive parking
Mm.
lot, a big space.
Mm.
Let's start doing clinics. Let's do basically some of the first pop-up clinics that were happening at his church. And not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of publicity built around that,
Right.
but very effective. And so they use
Mm-hmm.
that as this model. But as this is going on, we're documenting all of this. We're catching these
Mm-hmm.
moments and these like doctors from Keck, from USC, uh, uh, the county hospital, basically USC, the county hospital, they were coming down to these events, like being,
Mm-hmm.
these people that would answer questions like, I'm a doctor. They happen to be Black doctors. And it's like, hey,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they wanted to get back in. And so we were capturing all of this. And
Yep.
and at some point, someone told Sean and I, you guys are like documenting history right now. And that's
I
when
was
it
just
kind of
about to
hit
say,
us.
yeah.
Yeah, that's when it
Yep.
hit us, and we were just like, "Whoa, you're right." And we really captured so much of, even when, like, Dr. Abraham um from blanking, I'll think of it in a second, but Dr. Abraham, like his hospital that he was from, that dude was
Mm-hmm.
like a warrior, and they ended up vaccinating like 400,000 people in South LA.
Wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And then the politicians started getting involved.
Yes.
Um, State Assembly member Mike Gibson. But he was involved. Like, it wasn't like he just got involved and had this big rally. Like, we saw him at Nickerson Gardens, like
Mm-hmm.
like at this health fair, and that's where we met him. And then he invited us out to this big rally he was going to do, where it's like they literally are going to go door to door and educate people and really push for an area, which happened to be Watts, which in LA County had the lowest vaccination rate in the entire county. And some of it's
Mm-hmm.
access, some of it's misinformation, but it was just fascinating to be a part of that and capture that. So
Yes.
we heard about the APHA, and they were like, okay, we need 20-minute, you know, they called them features, or 20 minutes of a feature. And we're like, oh, we could easily stretch 20 minutes out of the footage we already have. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we ended up submitting to Skiff, where that came from, was what we had submitted to them. And we looked at it as, that's 20 minutes of basically a sizzle that we want to, because there's so much more to the story. I mean,
Agreed.
there's so much
Agreed.
more. And we need to do some additional interviews. And so we want to
Yep.
basically blow that out to a feature-length documentary.
So what I picked up from that, I mean, is a little bit of what you said, right? It started, and it was very clear to see that it started as kind of a documentary about just, the vaccination campaign that was happening. And what I saw, and you can keep me honest here, is I saw two things that really stood out. Number one is access, like you said, right? Which is these minority communities were disenfranchised, they were cut off. And then the second part was really the education aspect of it, where I just felt like a lot of these minority communities were left behind, and they didn't necessarily have the information that they needed to be empowered. And it was like, you think about it, you're like, Watts, that whole area, Watts, South Central, all of LA is getting so gentrified. And yet there were these entire communities that seemed to be just left behind, right? And to me, that's what I got out of it, where I saw, just kind of the disparity that people were talking about. And I really do think that you two stuck your finger into something. And, like all shorts, my 2 cents for what it's worth, like all shorts to me can potentially be, proof of concept that can be expanded,
Sure.
right? So I mean, is that something that you guys felt as well? Like you were capturing not only like the momentous work that was done on the ground, this grassroots movement that, I'm one of these people that I believe that when, charity is actually the stuff that's never seen, like the doctor who goes and makes 400,000 vaccinations, right? Like versus when people go out and do charity and then put it on Instagram, that's not charity, that's publicity. That's, again, my 2 cents. But I'd love to get your take on, the disenfranchisement, is that a word, of the minority community, kind of, in a place even like Los Angeles where, Watts is getting gentrified, there was yet this group that was left behind. I mean, is that something that you guys were also driving towards in this documentary?
Well, I think it was in some way because but see, and this is why the feature has to happen, because I need to get a researcher out there, but I distinctly remember on a national level, the federal government saying nobody's getting left behind on this vaccine rollout. Like they're not going to do that.
Right.
They're going to ensure
Right.
that. And that's exactly what happened to Watts. But I think that the bigger story, or the inspiring story out of that, is that community refused to be left behind. And then they really stepped up. And we found one of the reasons, through interviewing people and just talking to people, was that there was a lot of food insecurity going on at that point. Like some people were like, I'm not worried about a vaccine. I'm worried about like eating. Like, where's my next
Really?
meal? Oh my gosh, it was really bad. And so even one of the young
Was
men
that because of COVID, or was that like yet another issue that you guys just happened to step into?
I think that it got exponentially worse because of COVID. I think there's definitely food insecurity issues there. That is, Watts is what they call a food desert. So they have, convenience stores,
Mm.
some fast food restaurants,
Mm.
uh, liquor stores, but I think they have one grocery store in the furthest south. Like technically it's Watts, but it's like a Food for Less, like down, in a place that's hard to access. And the thing that I learned about Watts, and I'd known this a little bit before, I didn't realize to the extent of it though. Like you've got Jordan Downs projects, Imperial Courts, and then Nickerson Gardens. And
Mm-hmm.
Nickerson Gardens, one gang has that on lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Imperial Courts, another gang has that on lockdown. They're 2 miles from each other. So anything you're doing in Nickerson, well, no one's coming over from Imperial Courts. It's dangerous. It's
Right.
life-threatening.
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's like they could die, something could happen to them just going to a grocery store
The
that
grocery
happens to
store.
be out of
Mm-hmm.
their neighborhood. So imagine they have to leave to go get vaccinated. So there's a lot of that kind of dynamics that's going on there. And I remember Philip, one of the guys he was 18, came down. He's in the film. And, and this is again, more to his story, because he talked about it, is that like he came down and his thing was like, can I get some, because we were doing a food drive too. That was like our first food drive combination vaccine clinic. And it wasn't like in order to get food, you have to get vaccinated. It's like literally just come get food and we'll answer any questions you have on what this vaccination is. And he came down, it's 18-year-old, handsome young man, like, and he was just like, is it all right if I get some food? Like, like, like when I was 18, I was embarrassed when my mom took me into the Goodwill, like
Yeah.
hoping,
Yeah.
or 17, hoping none of my friends from high school saw us going to a garage sale, right? To
Right.
a secondhand
Right.
store, right? Thrifting
Yeah.
that's now like popular or whatever. But I was nervous about that. This guy's like literally putting his ego aside and saying, can I get some of this food from my home?
Right.
And we're just like, man, load up, like seriously. And he was getting vaccinated, but he's like, my mom won't get vaccinated, but I'm going to get vaccinated so I can protect her, and it's just like, but the food thing, yeah, I mean, there were little kids. I mean, it's rough,
Heart-wrenching.
and that's happening right in our backyard.
Today.
That's
Yeah, that's
happening
right.
in this rich country that we live in, and then just the data that's out there. When you look at like the disparity between we pointed it out in the short, the disparity between the vaccination rate in Bel Air and then
Mm.
Watts, like it's not even close. I mean, it's not
And
even
it's not that far away, right? Wait,
it's
when you think about it geographically, right?
it
But
is
it's two different
geographically,
worlds.
yeah, it's like 5 miles away. Like it's just really not
Mm.
that far. It's unreal. And so this was not supposed to happen, right? This was not
Yeah.
supposed to happen. And I cannot wait to get that footage of whoever was saying that, because they've said it on the news, like no one's going to get left behind. And that's exactly what was happening. And these are communities that were still working during the pandemic. They didn't have the luxury to
Yeah.
stop working. They had to work in order to eat. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was.
And the crazy thing is, I think of like, if it's happening in California, right, how bad is it everywhere else? That's what I think about, right? Like, how bad is it everywhere else? I mean, and it's interesting to me because, like you said, we are in the wealthiest country, in this great big, blue marble that and yet, right? And yet the disparity is so huge.
And
And,
isn't California
um,
the wealthiest
and
state in the union as well? Like we had, like,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
our GDP or
Eighth
something like,
largest GDP in the entire world. Eighth largest
yeah,
GDP.
like we're a
Correct.
country in a sense, like it's
Yep.
unreal. So for
Yep.
that to happen, I mean, it's tragic. And we really want to shed a light on that. But also we
Mhm.
want to get more information about why people weren't getting vaccinated. We just really just touched on that. We want to talk to people
Mhm.
that still haven't gotten vaccinated and why, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
just to, because I think that information is as important as the reason that people did get vaccinated. It's like you're going to learn a lot from people explaining why they don't want to get vaccinated. Like, you know,
Are you guys going to delve in, again, sure happens. Are you going to delve in a little bit into, like, again, that disparity, right? Like Bel Air's 5, like you said, it's 5 miles away, right? But it might as well be another world. And yet, I'm a little bit of a centrist, but, so I think it's a pox on both houses. But when you think of, like, kind of, the folks in Bel Air or Beverly Hills or West Hollywood will tend to be more leaning to, dare I say, woke. And yet, are these folks doing anything to help, their neighbors in Watts, which are 5 miles away, and yet you might as well be living in another country? Like, I'm curious
no,
about
no,
that.
there was nothing happening like that. In fact, what was happening in California or Los Angeles in particular is, if you remember, they had a thing where they tried to they saw what was happening. Kudos to them
Mhm.
to try to make something happen, but they
Mhm.
basically had a list of codes or something that you could dial in and schedule an appointment, or and use this code, or use the internet and use this code. And basically, a bunch of rich people got a hold of those codes and jumped the line in front of who they were supposed to be used for,
Mm. Yep.
gladly. Um and oh, it's and something that happened, like Dr. Abraham at Kedron, that's what it is, Kedron Health, like their main location, which is they have a location in Watts, and then they have a main location a little bit further north. And
Mhm.
like what he was doing, and he's a hero for this, but he was basically pulling out an extra 100 doses of vaccines a day, that basically you could line up. And he said, I don't care where you're from, you can come here and stand in line. And at the end of the day, whatever's left of our extra
Mhm.
100 that we pull out, we're going to vaccinate people. And it doesn't matter if you're old whatever the way they were rolling it out, it didn't matter, or a healthcare worker or whatever.
Hmm.
He just wanted to get people vaccinated. So what was happening there was basically you, you had a bunch of white people standing in line, at the end of the day coming because people heard about it. But what was really good in that situation, though, was that there were community activists that were out, and they were basically pulling anybody that was in line that was from that community and putting them to the
Hmm.
front of the line. And no one was like, "Oh, you can't do that." It was just like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Hmm.
Or anybody, like any non-white person basically could just go right in, and rightfully so, from that community. I mean, that's what it was there for. But Dr.
Yep.
Abraham, felt like that was really important, and it was important. And he caught a lot of flack for that. There were people that were saying like that's not the way to do it, but in his mind, it's like, I want to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And the bottom
That's
line is, you
possible.
know what? They're going to go bad anyway. Now that I pulled them
That's
out,
right. That's right. That's
so
right. You gotta
whatever,
get it done.
go
Right.
arrest me then. So he's one of
Yes.
our heroes in this that we really, again, we saw just a little bit of him in there, but that guy was so fearless, just stopping people. There's so much of him just
Hmm.
stopping people, and just it's like, how can you say no to him? Like, okay, all
Yep.
right, and just, so he's he's an amazing person, and just to see what he was doing, was, I mean, he was amazing.
So one more question, and then I want to jump into more of like your background a little bit.
Okay.
But you mentioned one of the local politicians that were there. What, if anything, did happen, has happened, will be happening on the political front to get some movement, or to change things?
That's a great question. So we'll be interviewing him for the future, because that, like, he would be able to answer that. But like, kudos to him for looking out for his community, because that he represented the people in Watts, for the state of California. And he was out there, and he was, and he saw it, and he looked at the data, and he used that data, to really like push like that was I mean, there were hundreds of people out there that day to just like just swarm the community, and like just knocking on
Hmm.
doors. And again, lots of disinformation too, though, so that's a lot of what they were battling. So, but it would
Hmm.
be great to hear from him that, like, that's something we want to know, like, what moving forward, like, how do things change so it never gets to this point, because that
Yep. Yep.
it was horrible.
Okay. Well, so we'll put that on pause because I want to come back to it, and
Okay.
maybe, I don't know if you guys are going to crowdfund or whatever. We'll tell people how to support this great project. Coming back to you, so I know the story. I know the story again because I got some insider information. But tell us how you got started as a director. It's like what led you down this path? What is this journey? How did this evolve? So.
I was working in casting, commercial casting. I got out of the garment industry after September 11th. I was there we were breaking a line that Thursday. It was a big fashion show we're supposed to be doing for that. I was actually getting on a plane that morning at Newark. I won't, I'm just fortunate I wasn't on that plane that came from New York, but or from Newark. I was going up to Toronto for the day to look at some retailers. And for me, it just, after September 11th, I just, like, I was on the business side of the garment industry, and all my friends were like designers, right? And I was just like, I'm so jealous of you guys. You tell stories through your collections, and like, those are like the people I hung out with. I didn't like the business side. And so I had been writing an article, like a column for this magazine. It's gone now. I can't think of the name of it. I'll think of it. My memory works like that. I guess give me like 5 minutes and I'll remember it. But um, and I just enjoyed writing this article. But then anyway, I got, basically a year or so later, I got out of the garment industry, and I looked around at some things to do in entertainment, since I was in Los Angeles. And I was I started in the mailroom at Abrams Artists Agency. It's a talent agency, bi-coastal talent agency, mid-level talent. on camera mid-level talent, voiceover department. So I ended up working on getting out of the mailroom, working on a desk in the voiceover department. And so
Hmm.
I was doing running voiceover sessions, working with this agent. I mean, 6 months in, I realized I don't want to be on the agent side either. Again, the business side. So
Yeah.
a neighbor of mine is this pretty big casting director, and she was just like, "Why don't you run sessions for me?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to do any of that." "Oh, we'll teach you." And so I ended up running sessions. So most people, if they go to a commercial audition, the person that's running the session, they think that's the casting director. No, the casting director is more like a producer. They kind of sit back in an office and kind of like get more jobs. And then they have everybody else kind of like looking what talent they're going to bring in. And then we run the
Hmm.
sessions typically. So yeah, I started doing that and running, like directing people in commercial auditions was just like it's like baptism by fire on how to direct people, because it's like, they're going to give you like, well, this is my take on what I should do in the audition. It's like, okay. And then you got to get them to kind of where you think the like the ad agency or director want them to be. Like they're kind of giving you all of this information in advance. So how do you communicate from somebody, okay, we need you here, and then we need to get you to this place because this is what they're looking
Yep.
for. So it,
Yep.
it became like, it was just like getting a degree in direct and fast. I mean, we're seeing 100 people in a day kind of a thing, like, and you're
Wow.
just running through it, which was great for my ADHD that I never even knew I had until the pandemic. But it was like the perfect. I even asked my my doctor who diagnosed me. I was like, wait a second, how would I know now that I got ADHD? And they're like, well, what kind of job did you have before? And I've been doing it for 13 or 15 years. And I explained what I did, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's perfect because it's like little bursts of concentration that you have to do, and then you're moving on to the next one." And I was like, "Wow!" Like it was crazy. And so, um, yeah, that's what like that kind of. And there was. Do you want me to tell the story of when I was like, "Oh, I have to do this for the rest of my life"? Do you want to hear that
Yeah,
story?
yeah, yeah. The same
Okay.
story you told us so
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I got the insider, but the same story you told us at the Boston Boot Camp. Same thing. That's what I'm poking at and trying
Okay,
to
okay, gotcha.
prod you
Okay,
down,
so
crowd you down.
right. So we're doing it was like a Volkswagen commercial, and it was basically this couple was that like this engaged couple was like had an attitude towards each other. It was like just that tension of a relationship or whatever. And it was subtle. And this young lady came in and she like literally had the look that they were looking for, because you get these storyboards and you see how they storyboarded out. And it was like literally, it looked like they drew her for the storyboard. Like she was like this ethnically ambiguous woman with these freckles. She was just had this curly reddish hair. And
Uh,
she her audition. And by the way, I'm married to an actor, so I love actors and I want to give them their best shot. And
right.
I'm not an actor, right? So, and a lot of these session directors are
But
actors and they get
that's a
frustrated.
director, right? Like a director, the job is to make your actors shine and bring them to the highest level, right? And while telling the story.
Yeah,
So
you want to tap them. You want them to tap into it, and so much of it comes from trust, right? So that's
correct,
something that
correct.
people, apparently I was pretty good at this. People always remembered me running sessions because, I mean, look, I am a trusting person and people feel comfortable around me. So I think
I
that
don't trust you
helps.
at all. At
Okay.
all. I don't
It's
trust
okay.
you.
It's okay. You will trust me. And so people, they tend to trust me. And so I think that's why they feel at ease around me. But this woman, um, similar to my older daughter, my middle child, the first time I directed her in a short film, that was, it was so obvious when somebody doesn't trust you, doesn't feel emotionally available to give you something. That was a shot that hit hard with my daughter, like, because for me, because I was like, oh wow, that's what it is. You just don't trust me, your dad. So, um, whole other story. But so this woman, we needed her to have the kind of this attitude about something. And unfortunately, she was going in, we were doing groups of two, but we didn't have a guy to pair up with. So she had to do it by herself. So we were just doing this, and that's kind of hard to do anyway. But um I got she she just wasn't getting the direction. Like she was like I would tell her, we're gonna do this, and she's like, okay, I got it. And there was an added layer of pressure is that casting director was just an absolute psychopath where she would, I'm not gonna say names, but she would just barge in on auditions, like cuss out the session director, cuss out the actor, like just because she just wanted things done a certain
Isn't
way.
that
And all these
half of
casting
Hollywood though?
directors,
Like, I mean, isn't that what half of Hollywood is though? I mean, it's a lot of like just egomaniacs who like walk in and yell and scream at you and
unreal, like
and you're
unreal. I
like,
mean, anybody who's watching this who knows commercial casting, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not gonna name, but so she ends up, because they all sit back there in their little offices and they got monitors on every one of their casting rooms. So they're watching and listening. And so I just knew she was gonna come in. And so I felt this additional pressure. And this was kind of like one of the first casting directors I worked with outside of the one who brought me in. I was kind of expanding and getting more work. And I mean, I literally had to answer a Craigslist ad to get the gig, which means that's how bad she is, because you don't go on Craigslist looking for someone to run your sessions. You just call up people because they want to work with
yep,
you, right? So
yep,
I was
yep,
the sucker that did that, but I knew it was coming, and I was like getting frustrated, and she'd already come in a couple times, and plus you're literally on the clock, like it was a SAG job, so you got if someone's there for over an hour, and if they like overschedule it, which they typically do,
yep,
they're going to run into
yep,
that hour. And every time an actor is in there for an hour, it's a certain amount of money that the casting director now has to pay to that actor. So that could stack up. You have I mean, it'll be a couple $1,000s that casting director has to pay out if they
yeah,
mess that up. So it's truly a flesh factory. It's just like in and out, in and out. But so I'm getting frustrated with her, but I wanted to get something out of her, and she, it's like 3 or 4 takes. And then finally, I asked her, and I felt like I was going to regret this the moment it came out of my mouth, but I said, "Are you taking acting classes?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm studying over here. I'm doing this." And I was just like, "Well, you've wasted your money.
I was about to say, but you're not, obviously you ain't getting it.
You
So
wasted
you
your
might want to
money.
go back.
Like you
You
wasted
might
your
want to go
money."
back.
Because so much of this acting is literally about listening and just getting out of your
Yeah,
own way and just kind of like just listen
yeah,
to what someone's telling you. And so
yeah.
she turned beet red. She was so like this anger came out of her. And I was just like, oh wait, that's it. Let's roll. Right. So we rolled on the audition, and it was it. Like we got it. And I erased all the other auditions, kept her slate. And I just, afterwards I was like, I'm so sorry it went to that thing, but like you really did a good job once you tapped into it. And you know I was pretty confident she would get the call back, which she did. She got the call back, and which they were excited to see her. But again, at the callback with
She
all those
didn't,
ad agency people, it was like 20 people in the
she
room, ad
didn't.
agency people that all came out to LA for a vacation, because they're all from like Chicago or wherever they're from.
Right,
Then the
right, right, right.
director, like she did like 2 takes, and he gave her like some direction, and he's a really well-known commercial director. And he just is like, he just walked out of the room after that. And it's just like, and then she was done with the audition, and because she couldn't get it. She didn't tap into it again.
Yeah.
And then they were
Like,
kind of,
okay, thank you. Thanks for
yeah,
coming.
great job, thanks. And then they were talking afterwards, like, she just did so much better in her original audition. And I was, I didn't like yell out, that was because of me, but I just was like, it felt good. It felt validating. And then at that moment, I was like, this is like, that was so impactful for me to see that happen. And that's when I realized, like, why am I watching something, and when somebody is crying for real,
Right,
right, it
right,
affects you on
right.
a real level. Like you can't
Yep.
put those drops in.
No,
That's bullshit,
no,
right? And so
no, you take them on that journey.
when
You
it's
have
real
to take them on
emotion,
that journey.
it's real. Like my wife is known for being able to cry on cue, right? And people are
Hmm.
like, well, hey, great job. Like, why are you still so upset? It's because that's real
You got
fucking
to that
emotion
place.
coming out
That's
of her,
right.
right?
You
She's
got to that
like,
place. That's right.
it's real. Like, okay, it's like she's tapping into something, many things she can tap into in her past to tap into that emotion, and she knows how to tap into it. And she's
Right.
giving in that way. So it's like when you see that, when it's real, it's real. I feel it. Like I feel it down, like in my gut, I feel that. And so that just like fascinated me, it just fascinated me. So that's, so then I write, and there's that, I just read somewhere, I picked up another book that I've been, I haven't looked at in a while. And, something in there,
Mm-hmm.
like, just the more you write, the better you'll get. And I hadn't read this.
Well, it's a muscle, right? Like whether you're writing or whether you're painting or whether it's
It
like the more
is.
you do it, the
And well,
more
the more
the
you'll
more.
develop it. Yeah, you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and I got that book probably like 10, 15 years ago, right? And I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
picked it up. It's been stuffed in a bag of mine, and I just happened to come across it. And I somehow got to this section where it said just this writing, like writing, it just takes like the quantity of writing and writing and keep writing, and it'll get better. And yeah, I mean, Sean knows he's my writing partner on a couple projects. I'm a beast. I'm a beast,
Yep.
especially feature film structured stuff. I put a lot of time in. I didn't write one spec script. I got like six, more than that probably. I just
Mm-hmm.
and each one of those, you're talking like can't countless amount of versions. And it's like that thing, you go back. I'll look back at something I haven't written on like a month. Like that's let something sit for a month. And if you feel good about it,
Yep.
let it sit for a month and look at it again. And you'll be like, what?
Perspective.
Who the hell wrote that? Like, I don't even remember writing that
Perspective.
trash. Like, what the
That's right.
hell? What was I doing?
That's right. That's right.
So,
That's right.
but that's how I
But
got
then
into it.
how'd you go from writing into documentaries? Like, I mean, I know storytelling, but still, like, I mean, it's a little bit of a different genre. So just kind of curious.
Well, my original business partner, when I got out to LA, like I did produce a movie in 2003. It's called 5150.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's so weird now because our initial contract, like our distribution deal finally expired. So now the property's back to us. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's like no one in the movie, it was all unknowns from Chicago, total guerrilla style shooting, no permits, no permission. Somehow I got in on that kind of at the tail end, bought the computer to help edit it. The writer director, Danny Gardner, who edited also like used our spare bedroom, uh, lived there and edited, the film. And then we went to whatever that thing is out in Santa Monica. That and sold the like licensed
Oh,
to
AFM. Oh, American Film Market. AFM.
AFM. That's
Got
where it
it.
went.
AFM.
And it was so brutal going out there. Like we had like our DVD trailer and it was like this is 2003 and it's empty there. We went out there the first day in suits, thinking we're gonna be like, we're wearing suits, we're from Chicago or whatever. And it was so funny because everybody's casual and we're like looking like some idiots. And then everybody was literally like, oh, sure. Here, man, I'll give you $5,000 for that. And I'll just throw it on that pile of 100 other films that I can't do shit with. Like that was the attitude. It was crazy. We were like, what the hell? And then like a decent dude took a look at our film and was like, look, it ain't big enough for what I'm doing, but my girlfriend is getting into this game and I'll help walk her through the process. And we got like a deal. Look, this film cost us literally, and I'm not joking, like $15,000 tops to shoot, edit everything. But we did everything, right? We did everything.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the actors, no one got paid, but like the deal we got was like 50,000 licensing deal for DVD. We were like, what? Like, this is great. We're buying new laptops. We're like, this is amazing, right? And so, but he and I ended up, so we're both like house music fans and stuff. And so we
Mm-hmm.
started shooting like the history of house music, right? As a documentary. And that's where, I mean, we were running, we all thought it originated in Chicago, but it didn't. So we turns out originated in New York, like the true roots of it, David Mancuso. And so we went out to New York, and I'm like rolling Canon XL PAL format video
Was this
camera.
back in the 90s or early,
Yes,
like late
90.
90s, early
No,
2000s?
no, no, no,
When
early
the
2000s.
club scene was so big, it was
Well,
really
no, no,
big
it was
still
early
then.
2000s. It was actually
Okay.
early 2000s after we sold the license to film. But Ari light kit, you know, that thing that comes in a little, it's like
Mm-hmm.
4 lights in there with light stands, and
Yeah, yeah.
wheel it around. We're on subways. We're documenting all this stuff. And it was kind of like, and I started researching documentaries a little bit, like what is it? And it's like, you're going to find your story, right? The story will come
Right.
out as you're documenting stuff. So nothing came of that, because I mean, some stuff happened, some mental health issues with my partner, and basically the company dissolved, but he still has that footage. And I literally talked to him today, as a matter of fact. So
It's a
um
sign. It's
I
a
don't know.
sign.
I mean, it's a good, because
I'm your lucky rabbit foot.
we still
That's what
have
it
the
is.
footage. We have the footage of stuff that we shot. And these are like legendary people from that scene that we got the interviews with already. We have them, and it's fascinating. And because I mean, they're old. They're older people, and so
Mm-hmm.
so we do have the footage. But anyway, I kind of like that format. I love documentaries anyway, but this was more of a thing of like, we were already documenting stuff, but we were shooting like 1 minute social media pieces, right? 1 minute
Right.
pieces
Right.
of, just different stuff. And so putting it all together, yes, it is storytelling. So yeah, that's so I'm kind of falling into that, but I do love that medium and of storytelling, because it's so real. I mean, that, like, it doesn't get any
Yeah.
more real than that. This
No,
is
it
real
doesn't.
people
It
telling
doesn't.
stories. So, and shaping
Mm-hmm.
that story. And so doing the short really forced me to think about, like, how does this story need to be told? And that's,
Mm-hmm.
now I know, it was kind of an exercise in a sense of like, okay, what are we missing? What do we need to go get? So
Yep. Yep. So what's next for you? I mean,
um
other than, and we'll come back to like how to support, vaccinate
yeah,
Watts
no, 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 for sure, for sure.
but what's next?
um so we have a Red Fox. Sean and I wrote a Red Fox biopic, um more in the vein of like how Ali was done, like a section, like just a section of his life, not like a birth to death
Mm-hmm.
documentary, or birth to death story. It's not a documentary. It's scripted. It's based on a woman that I met a number of years ago, who, it's her story actually. um
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Her story is just fascinating anyway. But she went on this tour in 1992 at the height, like on during hiatus, from when Red Fox was on hiatus from the first season of Sanford and
Mm-hmm.
Son, and he had his $1 million residency and in Vegas. He was truly at the height of his career, and they did this 9-week tour. And he had been touring his whole life at this point, right? And he was only like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
50, 49, 50 at this point. But he
Right.
ended up, so much happened on that tour, and that's the story we want to tell about Red Fox, because you learn so much about him on this tour. And you know it's so we have, like, it's a big studio that's looking at it right now. We are talking to um his wife, his widow,
Mm-hmm.
his stepdaughter, not stepdaughter, yeah, stepdaughter, I guess, who was his stepdaughter from, it wasn't his biological daughter. So we're just trying to get
Mm-hmm.
some rights hammered out, even though it's not really his story, it's her story. We have her rights, Linda Greiner, aka Lynn Roman. Um, so we got that going on. That's like a huge one. Like, if that one drops, like, that just gets me the legitimacy that I need, because
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood's all about legitimacy, right? I mean,
That's right.
it's all about
That's right.
legitimacy, like, and I'm getting to an age, which I won't tell you how old I am, but it's like, when people, if they see that you're, not in your 20s or 30s, they're going to say, whoa, you must suck, because you don't have representation yet. You must
See,
suck.
I think that's such bullshit though. But
Well,
that's
but
just
it is
me.
true.
Like,
It's ageism, though.
you
It
know.
really is ageism. And it's just
Hmm.
about, no, we just don't have access yet, right? I mean, that's all it is. It's just access. And so that would definitely get us access. But also, I've got some other scripts that I've written on my own that are definitely getting some traction.
Hmm.
Probably going to go more independent route with those.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
been writing stuff, specifically like, okay, I'm not going to wait on people. I do have a film that's
Agreed.
out there
That's
right
it.
now. I have a
That's
film
right.
that's out that was distributed in 2018 through Freestyle Digital Media called Live. Of course, hindsight, we should have went with our original title. Linda Johnson is Live, because Live, if you look up Live on Amazon or iTunes,
There's a ton of
every
it. That's right.
live freaking concert performance comes up. So
Yep. Yep.
anyway, that kind of,
Yep.
but you know, it's a cool found footage film. It's at least can say, oh, I have a feature film under my belt, as a writer director. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I thought I saw parts of that too. Sean, I thought it was very clever in terms of like just the mediums and what was used to tell the story. So
and that became
kudos. But
basically a social experiment, because
yeah.
we thought like that, like basically this woman gets abducted while doing a live stream on Facebook, right? So we showed the abduction on Facebook, actually on a live stream. Like, that's what you're seeing in the movie is what people actually saw on a live stream on her page. 3,500
Mm-hmm.
friends, not one person called the police, not one person made an effort. People DM'd her, her character,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, hey, you okay? And we went radio silent for like 30 days. Like, will somebody do something? And it was crazy. Like, no one did anything. Like, we even like knew this captain in LAPD, and we were like, hey, we're just giving you a heads up. You know, something might happen. You might get a call. It's just us. It's not real. But no one called. No one did anything. Like, it's crazy.
It
I
says
mean,
something about I'm sure like they would rather videotape something happening and post it than actually call 911. That's what happens nowadays, I think, right?
I mean,
Like, I mean,
she
it's more about
literally
like,
was dragged out of her bathroom, and it's all like on camera. Chased through her house, dragged out of her bathroom, and it looked freaking real. Like, the comments too were like, "What the hell did I just see?" Like, the legit comments were like, "Whoa!" Like, wow, this is kind of scary. So, but
yeah.
anyway, nothing happened. And again, intentionally, because that was all about, what do I have resources to? I have resources to cameras, 4K cameras.
Yep.
One of
Mm-hmm.
my producers, cousin is like the owner of Sammy's or something. Like, so we got a really good deal on a camera package. I have talent, right? And we went,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everybody was basically unknown, because you got to do that for like a found footage. Otherwise, if they see like an actor that they recognize, they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, this
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
real. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
ultimately, the distributor did not know how to leverage that,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do licensing deals with different platforms. They just were like, well, they keep saying there's no stars in it. And it's like, yeah, but it's like horror. Found footage is the star. Like, that's
Yeah. It's like
that's
Blair's
that's
Witch, right? That's
yeah,
exactly
that's
what it is.
intentional,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's intentional.
Yeah.
Like that's it. So yeah, I mean, so got some good things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And just you know, either some big stuff's gonna drop, or we're gonna do our next one, with no permission, no permits again, whatever.
Well, but that's the independent spirit, right? Like, and I think to your
Yeah.
point, it's like exactly what you just said about like, oh, well, we didn't have names or we didn't. And it's like, I feel, me personally as well, like I just, we're so far off track of what that independent spirit, I mean, when I, think about what Blair Witch was, right? Like, I mean, back then it was the same concept and everybody went, oh my God, this is the most amazing, like, creative thing we've ever seen, blah, 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 blah. And yet, when you talk about this independent movement, right, like what it's become right now, like a Blair Witch today would not sell. It wouldn't, or like
We're
some of
proof
these
of that.
indie,
Yeah. Our thing did
yeah,
not sell. Yeah.
the indie that,
Even though, what's weird is we went to two distributors All right.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was Blumhouse. All right. And Blumhouse, this is what's crazy is like the person who walked it over to Blumhouse
Yes.
has a really good end of Blumhouse. And we sent them over a special link so we could see how
Yes.
many times they viewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Blumhouse viewed that they had like 15 views of the full movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they never replied because they had a found footage film unfriended the dark web, which ours is about the dark web, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's too similar to what they were doing,
Yep.
just
Yep.
in concept, right?
Well,
Very
I'm
different
surprised then
films.
that they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't buy it and just shelve it so that they, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people do that. They'll do that just to like
True, but very,
block it,
very, I mean,
block it.
completely different, like just different themes and all that stuff. But it was interesting because we were like, oh shit, Blumhouse might want to do a deal with us. But they,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, like not, no, we're not gonna do
No,
a deal with you
they're
guys.
like, oh, this is a competition. We're not
And
doing
we're
this.
not gonna tell you that we're not gonna do a deal with you. We're just never gonna
That's
answer
right.
you ever again. So it's like, okay, whatever. But I
Well,
liked our
maybe not
movie
today.
better than
Maybe
theirs.
tomorrow. You don't know. Like maybe you know what I mean. Like what goes. It's like sometimes it takes a long time to come full circle. So you never
Yeah,
really know.
yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
we have someone in our film, Norman Towns, who, he's his star is rising. It's just one of those things where it's like, with the right opportunity, him being in it, one of these like platforms will say, "Oh, we'll license it from you.
Yep.
We're in the
Yep.
Norman Towns game. We'll license it
Yep.
on our platform." Because like when it plays on the Griot, man, this is what's crazy for us is that like the Griot will run it like on their like they'll run it on a rotation or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
when it plays on the Griot, we know because all of a sudden we start getting she gets hits to her
The hits.
page
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Hits.
her the
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
still up, so she's getting hits. People are like, oh my god, like they're commenting about it to Linda Johnson. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I learned so much. Again, it's what are you going to learn from it? What are you going to
That's
learn from
right.
it?
That's right.
But
That's
I will
right.
tell you this about
Everything you do.
the ageism that you and I face in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
um Today I interviewed this guy, this 83-year-old artist who's like this true, like he's a visual artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is an artist. Like this dude is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about the money. It never should be about the money, this and that. And this guy's,
That's right. That's
you
right.
know, but just to hear him and the things he's still wanting to do and not wanting to do, but doing,
Yep.
like, I was just fascinated. I'm just like, fuck yeah,
Well, that's
man.
what I want to be. That's what
That's what I'm
that
saying. What is
personally.
retirement?
That's what I
Like,
want to be.
what's
That's what I want to
retirement,
be.
right? Now, while
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe Clint Eastwood should have directed his last film, he should not have been the lead in his last film.
Agreed. Agreed.
Whatever that, I forgot what it was. Like the film concept was really good, but dude, I don't,
Wasn't it the mule? I thought it was the
the
mule.
mule.
Maybe I'm
No,
wrong.
no, 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 not the
Yeah.
mule. No, it was after that. It was
Okay.
the one where he's God, trust me, he looked like a 91-year-old trying to play a 60-year-old, maybe. But when I did it, he punched somebody. I'm like, dude, come on, man. If you would have punched that 40-year-old, 35-year-old dude, robust guy in the jaw, like your whole arm would have like shattered. Like, come on. Like, it was so unbelievable. And I felt bad because it was like, he's got the faculties, he's got the brain
Yeah.
power, right? But come on, man.
Yeah, but the body
You
isn't the
can't be
body
the
isn't
lead
there.
in that, dude. You look like you're
Yeah.
90 years old now.
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
bless him though, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I mean, I totally, I'm with you because like for me, it's kind of like when I look at stuff I wrote in, my 20s and like I pick stuff up now. I mean, there's some scripts actually, it's like I found one that I put to the side and I actually was like, oh, this is pretty good. I mean, it's kind of stood the test of time and, probably going to end up making it into a feature. But it's, I personally think that there is a wisdom and a knowledge that comes with living that I look at my 20-year-old self and I'm like, how the hell did you even make it out alive? Like, I don't understand, you know what I mean? So when when I really think back, you know, much like you, I believe in the art, I believe in the journey. I believe, you know, I hope that I'm at it, hacking away, you know, into my 90s, right? Because art is just that to me. It's that creative energy that just keeps on going, right? But when you know, and I was like, what if I had blown up in my 20s? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was in New York back when Miramax was down in Tribeca, and, you know, and Artisan was down there, and it was that whole real independent movement happening. And that was like my late teens, early 20s, you know, and what if I had blown up? Like, would I mentally have had the, you know, spiritually had the capacity to deal with what comes with that, right? And like, one of the scripts I actually wrote was getting, like, Miramax was taking a hard look at it. Like, they even offered some money for it. And I was like, I just don't think it's ready. And I know a bunch of guys who are like, Lisa, this is like your master. It's like, it's one of your, it's like, it's your masterpiece. I disagree with it. Like, when I tell them now, because when I read it, I'm like, I wrote about pain, not really knowing pain. I wrote about love, not really knowing love. I wrote about all these human experiences that how could I possibly take it to the depth and the layers and the fractured brokenness and healing of people and all that without having lived it. And so when I hear, like, well, it's not even ageism. When I hear, like, we're in this culture of like yum or whatever, right? And you're a man, try being a woman who's like, you know, like in her late 30s or in her 40s, like, right, like, I mean, there's this like, oh, you're an old cow that needs to be taken out into a field and shot, and yet there's so much wisdom that comes with learning, and there's so much depth and there's so much capacity for life, I think. And I think that when we keep on going back to this, like, for whatever reason, this formulaic way of looking at stories and saying, oh, you know, Michael Greene, you're, you know, in your late 40s or your, you know, early 50s, and you have not yet signed, or you haven't, it's like, that's your journey. And there's still, like, you know, you'll find your rhythm when you go punk, and it'll happen, right? So I always like challenge people when they say that. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they're like, well, you know, the skiff, like, you know, I mean, I thought it would be a little bit bigger. And I was like, you do realize that that was year 2, right? And they're like, yeah, but, you know, Palm Springs or Santa Barbara. And I'm like, 20 years down the road.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? You're comparing a 2-year-old and asking a 2-year-old why they're not running to a 20-year-old. And I kind of feel the same way, but in reverse. It's like a 20-year-old, yeah, there's some 20-year-olds or whatever, or 18-year-olds or whatever, like, who are really have lived life, which is kind of a sad thing, because that means they've been through some shit early. But there's no way you go to that capacity. I don't care how good an actor you are, how many Meisner classes you take. Like, there's no way to go to that capacity, like your wife, to pull off of like the lessons lived and learned without having those lessons lived and learned. So I think that makes you a better actor, writer, director, whatever, DP, because, you know, you have a certain nuance in the eye now, which I think is just. But I will get off my soapbox.
Well, no, but I'm learning. But see, I'm also learning that too. Is that, like, I'm learning when I get like script notes or something from a person who I'm like, wow, like you literally don't know what the hell you're talking about.
You don't know
I'm
Jack.
just like,
that's right. You
wow,
don't know Jack.
like yeah. Wow, but thank you for your suggestion on this dialogue. Like, what?
That's right.
What? Like, I'm just like,
yeah.
But I mean, it's like, I mean,
you smile and you just go, okay.
Yeah, you know, your heart's in the right place. But yeah, it is. I mean, I had a friend, I mean, not had, but he told me something, because I fell in with this group of guys. Somehow I fell in with a golf group, just like these 9 holes every Saturday morning, with all these former writers from the original Twin Peaks. And they were so chill. And I just sat there and listened to them all the time. And I asked one of them, Bob Ingalls, I was just like, you know, because I knew he got kind of started late. And so and I was just like, what's like, how do I get into this, or how do I do this, right? And he was like, I don't know. He's like, everybody's path is different in this business.
Different. That's
Everybody's path is so different. It's just like, it just doesn't, what I did and how I did it, that's not going to work for you, because you're on a different path,
That's right.
So
That's right.
it was
And it's
great
all in
advice.
divine timing. It's all divine timing. It'll happen
Yeah.
when it's supposed to happen, when it's, the right moment and what do they say? Like, opportunity is 99% preparation, right? Or preparation is, I forget what that, but I mean, that's literally it. You just keep doing,
Well, luck,
and then
right?
boom.
Luck is
Right.
90, right? It's like when opportunity meets preparation or whatever, right?
That's right. That's what I was like
it
looking
is.
for, right?
And that's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
true. That's absolutely 100% true,
So let's wrap up really quickly, because I actually do have to jet, but what's next? So if people want to help with, are you doing like a GoFundMe campaign for Vaccinate Watts, anything like that, or?
Not yet. We're trying to we don't need a lot of money. So we're just basically trying to get somebody to write a check to do it. So we got
what kind of money are we, what are we thinking? What do you think you need?
I feel like to do it right. And that means I want to hire an editor to do, like, I want to get a documentary editor and not do it myself. I think we need like 150 tops on the high side, because we got a lot of it already done, but I want to do, we got probably 5 interviews we need to do. And like, legitimately, I want to set, I want to do I want to do those right. And I want to get a researcher. I want to get, I want to get some graphics done. I want to do it right. But 150 is nothing, right? It's not, when you think about, like, it's nothing. So we think we can get someone to write a check, or we're looking at some grants as well. So we'll see.
So if someone wants to write you a check, and we'll put this at the end when we're editing this, like, where would they go, or how would they contact you or Sean?
Contact Sean McBride. I mean, just put his phone number up there. Yeah, put his phone number up there.
Perfect.
Contact
I will.
Sean McBride.
Text Sean here.
Yeah, text Sean. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a story. Hey, you know what? The story's gonna get told. It's just a matter of when.
It has to. Yeah, it's just a matter of when.
So.
In divine timing. Cool. Well, Michael Greene, thank you for joining, for chatting with me for an hour, and telling stories, because that's what Skiff is all about too. Is we start with a story. So thank you. Thank you for being, like I said, the first one.
I didn't know I was the first one, but I'm honored.
Numero uno, my friend. Numero uno. So we'll cut this up. We'll make it look pretty. We'll make you look pretty. We've got a green screen. We can put some stuff behind you.
Yeah.
That's gonna be great.
This is our studio. This is the garden
that
studios.
Was a mistake putting the green screen behind there, because all of a sudden more things are gonna pop up, right?
But, I know you got some space right there. You could put the Skiff logo, right? You could go Skiff this thing out for sure.
That's right. It's
lit too. That is our lighting for our green screen that is happening back there. I needed some kind of light in here, but that's how it's lit for you. So
we'll have like
work it out.
Godzilla coming in the back or something.
Do whatever you need to do. That's right.
To make it interesting. All right. Cool. Happy Friday. Thank you for sitting down with us. We'll get this cut. We'll get this out. We'll pump it on social media, get you some coverage as well. And thanks for kicking off the first director's cut.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, Lisa.